the market's almost rising up like an albatross from the ashes, from the March lows, you really wonder as a portfolio strategy whether there is any need to realign or not. And we've got three experts today joining in from the House of Aditya Birla Mutual Fund to really analyze that. They represent value, growth, and quality. So I'm going to dig deeper as to how is it that we can realign our portfolios. Gentlemen, evening, and evening to all of you tuned in this evening as well. Ajay, if I could start with you, why fix it if it ain't broken? That's the question at every portfolio investor's mind right now, that you've seen such handsome returns. The market has time and again told you that irrespective of any hue and cry, of any calamity, pandemic, whatever it may be, the market is a future-looking beast, and that's already priced in the growth and the economic recovery. So do you really need to realign your portfolios at this juncture?
So, Aisha, you are right, actually. So what we saw in 2020 was a rally immediately after the COVID broke out. That was on 23rd of March last year. We made a bottom, and we rallied post that. There were a couple of reasons why we rallied. Initially, it was pushed by the governments, helped by the governments globally as well as locally, and secondly, it was like people. Lot many people, lot many services or jobs. They could do work from home rather than being in office, and mostly from the services sector, except for hospitality. And a lot many companies, they changed their business model and somehow adapted to that new culture that enabled them to work seamlessly. Without their employees moving out of their home. And in the process, what happened was like people were saving money at that point of time because they were not traveling out, they were not spending on in restaurants, not going out for entertainment. And that extra money got invested into the equity market. So in a sense, like it climbed the wall of hopes and or worries. And now what we are seeing is like slowly workplaces are opening up, and as vaccines come into the market and people get vaccinated, that fear of going to office will slowly go off. Some part of the work will be done permanently from home, which people have adapted or the companies have adapted very well. But what will happen is like less money will go to the stock market directly, and it may go to the companies, or in the sense like people will spend, people will go and shop, people will go and entertain themselves, go to the restaurants, and so the health of companies will improve. So what will happen is that last year the health of companies were low, looking quite low, and people thought it is a bubble in the marketplace. Things are not working well, but the stock markets are rallying hard. So what we have seen time and time again, that markets tend to align with reality. So less money to invest in the stock market directly, but more money to spend. And so what will happen is like fundamentals and technicals will tend to align, or 2021-22 mid will be a period where reality check will happen. And so that way it is.
Anil, I want to get you in here. While Ajay has established that yes, there is a need to now realign your portfolios. The traditional debate in the equity markets has always been about value versus growth, and we've time and again seen, at least in the last decade or so, that it's growth is one. Right now, what you're seeing is momentum in the markets. I mean, the famous dialogue in D Street is "Risk hai to ishq hai." I know it's a leaf out of an OTT series, but really, everyone seems to be throwing that dialogue every now and then. That it's all about momentum. What out of these three is going to win eventually? Is it going to be growth? Is it going to be value? Or would you say, don't use your minds? There is no valuation metric in this market. Just ride the momentum.
No, I don't think we can generalize. Just to play momentum. Yes, in the short term right now, when we see a lot of money chasing, returns basically across the globe, right? You have very, very low interest rates. You have huge amount of fiscal and monetary stimulus, depending on which country we're talking about. And the most fungible thing in this world is, like money, capital. It just moves. And we're seeing huge amount of inflows in India. So it clearly seems like a large momentum market. But let's not forget that, from an India perspective, we managed the COVID pretty well. Nobody had expected growth rates to have bounced back the way we've seen growth rates, consumption, infra spending, etc., coming back so quickly. Nobody had anticipated, it's been almost 5 or 6 years, we've tried fiscal consolidation as far as this government is concerned. We've now taken this opportunity to say that the priority is growth, and we've given ourselves a 5-year room window where we are okay with some higher fiscal deficit. So, all these things will lead to better growth rates, I think, and hence better valuations, better earnings growth, most important. I think the most important underlying statement that we need to make is earnings growth. Eventually, it all boils down to earnings growth, and earnings growth. If you go back to the last 5 years, we've always begun, the year with a lot of optimism, and most analysts on the sell side, buy side, across would pen 15, 17, 18% earnings growth for the country. But, we've landed up with probably single digit and in some cases negative earnings growth for the last 5 to 6 years. But now with the change in terms of the environment, the momentum, the positivity which is there, and as I said, the change in policies, as we're assuming, lower interest rates to remain for a longer period of time, there is a genuine hope of a sustained growth and hence earnings to come back. And I think that's the message. That's the point that we need to make. It's just not all momentum. It's obviously based on certain, certain assumptions. The call to make really is going forward is, will those assumptions come true? But, and that's what investing is all about.
So you're the value guy here. What's happening in the market right now is that the market is already pricing in those strong earnings growth as well. Time and again, right now in the Q3, we've seen that irrespective of the highest revenue and highest profits, the markets are not rewarding those stocks because the stocks had already run up in anticipation of those high earnings growth. So this entire debate about what is it that you need to go for in the longer term, is it value, is it growth, or do you just stay with momentum? Which side are you leaning on?
Yeah, you asked me.
Yes, Satya, you.
Yes, the market tends to bucket everything on this growth and value thing, and we keep on debating what is growth and what is value. But the thing is that the way I would like to put it is that there are certain investment ideas which are structured and certain investment ideas which are cyclical. And so personally, what I do is that my bias is towards investing in more structural ideas in sectors which have strong tailwinds behind them. And even when I go to the cyclical ones, they're also cyclical. I will not go purely based on value. I will also look for growth in those cyclical needs. So I'll only go to cyclicals which have growth coming, pricing in of growth. And my view about the equity markets is that, everybody has been talking about that the markets have gone up and they're moved away from reality and everything. But the fact is that anywhere, if you have a large fiscal stimulus, as large as fiscal stimulus and as large as a monetary stimulus as we are having now across the globe, and even now in India, the fiscal stimulus has come after the budget. Fiscal stimulus leads to increase in corporate profitability. Corporate profitability leads to increase in corporate investments. So it creates a virtuous cycle. So the only risk in this whole thing is that this large fiscal stimulus and large monetary stimulus, will it lead to inflation? That is what we have to look out for. But that's the only risk. As of now, I don't think anybody is factoring any kind of inflation in the near future or in the medium term. So I think that is why the markets are where they are, and while most of the professional investors are still positive in the market going forward for the next 2 to 3 years. And in this kind of scenario, I would still prefer to invest in the long-term structural trends that are playing out. I don't think anything has changed to stop those things. Yes, value will rally; they will come. But the thing is that you have to think whether it's a short-term investment or the long-term investment. In the short term, value might outperform. Maybe it'll outperform growth in the short term, but longer term, I think growth will tend to outperform other so-called growth.
Okay, I'm glad you made that caveat. But Ajay, this debate can go on and we can go hours discussing about that. The fact that Satya was saying that, yes, there is the domino effect of inflation when you have some such large sizes of stimulus, but going by the last commentary of the RBI governor, it seems that the RBI is going to take whatever it takes, even if it be at the cost of inflation, to try and keep the economy in the growth territory. Where is it that you find value in such a scenario? And would you believe that cyclicals will continue to be in favor, irrespective of the inflationary impact?
So inflation can be there. It can be. It may. I feel if inflation is going to be there, it is going to be very, very short term in nature. The reason being, especially since mid of or 2015 or so, we actually evolved into a technological world where new technologies are coming up, and the inflation is almost getting killed. So it may be local to few geographies, but on a global scale, probably inflation, you may not get inflation for a really long time, helped by technology especially.
Sure, that's on inflation. But what about cyclicals? Will they continue to be in favor?
So cyclicals are more related to inflation, actually, and the reason why they are called cyclical, so they are short-term in nature. So I'm more of a secular person, where growth can actually be seen ahead and year over year, rather than it is a one-off or a 2-year phenomenon.
Anil, is there need to tactically realign your portfolio? Are there pockets that you need to now say, I've made the money, it's now time to get out and increase allocation somewhere else?
I won't use the word tactically, but yes,
Sure.
There is, you have to sit back at all point of times whenever there's an important event or an important policy, globally or locally, and you need to really understand if it's going to really change the earnings trajectory for a particular sector, a particular company, and if so,
Sure.
then should it be a part of your portfolio if it's not already? So yes, as I said in my earlier conversation with you, I think clearly, without a doubt, India is moving towards a more focus on growth, be it from the government or be it from the RBI itself, as you yourself mentioned. And within that perspective, with the kind of interest rates that we are looking at right now and likely to continue, even if it moves up, we are unlikely to go back to the old interest rate regime that we were in, with very, very high levels of interest rates, choking demand and choking further investments. That's unlikely to come through, at least in the medium term. And if keeping that in mind, there is no doubt that you will need to realign your portfolio to some degree to accommodate some of the stocks that you may have not earlier bought.
To those some stocks that you may not have bought, Satya, are there newer pockets that you may be looking at? Home building, materials, real estate. I mean, is that the deadly combo for this year ahead?
Yeah, I agree with what Anil said, because circumstances are changing, so we need to tweak our portfolios and fine tune it to the emerging trends that are coming in. The thing is, the way I would like to do is that if I go to, I'll look for cyclicals which are offering more growth, and I look for growth companies which are relatively cheaper compared to the other growth stocks. So that is how I would like to place the portfolio at this point in time, tactically or maybe for the medium term. And see, another thing, as you said, real estate and everything, I think real estate is looking positive, and a lot of people are positive. So, but the way I would like to play it is there are a lot of sectors which benefit from real estate, like you said, tiles and the consumer durables, etc., benefit from real estate, increase in real estate. So my personal style is I would prefer to play the sectors which benefit from real estate rather than investing directly into real estate companies. And it's something like, suppose if infrastructure, a lot of people are bullish on infrastructure, but benefit from infrastructure, apart from infrastructure companies, comes to certain other sectors also, like cement and other sectors. So I would invest in those sectors also. So as the government is spending on infrastructure, so these sectors will be in flavor going forward. So we need to tweak it. The thing is that we have to be mindful of the quality of investment that we make, because certain cyclicals tend to have a huge beta, and they create instability in the portfolio going forward. They might give you short-term return, but long-term they might create problems inside the portfolio. So we have to be careful of what are the type of stocks that within those cyclical sectors we buy. Other thing that I believe is that in India, you typically don't have those so-called growth sectors that you define it in the development. In India, hardly there are typical. What are the structural sectors really? They are staples, they are maybe healthcare. Rest everything is cyclical in India. So they exhibit characteristics of both being structural and cyclical. Like banking and finance is structural and cyclical in India. Consumer discretionary is structural in India because the penetration is so low, but still it is cyclical. So a lot of sectors in India show both the characteristics. So you can't say that in India I will not invest in cyclical, because then you are limited with only two sectors.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking about growth, though, I mean, large cap IT and pharma, good old two sectors. Now, I don't want to get into the debate about valuations, but I just want to understand whether they're still good to go for more, or would you say try peter out of that because they've already had such a good run?
No, I think good to go for more, both the sectors. But again, you should be clear in terms of your timelines, in terms of, what are these? These, IT is clearly, extremely secular. At least the Indian IT software companies consistently have been showing, higher single digit volume growth, and, at least higher I'm saying a lower double-digit earnings EBITDA growth. They are absolutely good free cash flow machines. They are very, very good balance sheets, excellent managements. And, India, as we know, is the hub for software, or offshoring as we call it. So I think these are companies which are here to stay. These are companies which are growing in size by leaps and bounds year after year. And, the world is, embracing us and has managed to embrace us over these most difficult times also over the last many years. But offshoring has remained and growing. So I think that's a sector which should be a part of one's portfolio without doubt. As far as pharmaceutical is concerned, again, it's one of the few sectors where India has got its core competency from a global perspective. We are the global hub for generics, so-called copycats, if you want to name that. But that's a sector where primarily 90% of the companies are, debt-free. Again, very, very good free cash flows. Again, the world probably, there's not a single corner in the world where we don't export our generics. And it's a sector which is, pretty much always going to be there. It's I won't use the word evergreen, but it's a sector which is there, either from a precautionary health perspective or a post perspective after an ailment. So I think it's a sector which is going to be there. It's consistent in terms of its growth rates. And, it's a sector wherein you should be invested, particularly in healthcare. It's just not, again, generics. You could look at hospitals. You could look at pathology labs. It's a wider sector rather than just, putting it as a pharmaceutical company. I think it's more healthcare related. I would use the word more healthcare, in which you can get all of these in a basket. And yes, you should be invested there. And I think there are lots of more legs in both these sectors to go.
Right. Ajay, how worried are you about the inflationary impact of commodity prices going on? Because, we're in the midst of Q3, although at the fag end. And, whichever company that we chat with has hinted towards, the inflationary impact of commodity prices going up. And if they aren't unable to pass it on to the consumers, then that could have a dent on the margins eventually.
Most of the companies that I have in the portfolio, they are not much affected by the commodity prices. The reason being, there is a significant value add uh, uh, within the company or by the management. So commodity prices per se, they don't affect much my set of companies where I have investment in. So it is more of a value add from the company side that actually translates the company.
Anil, how convincing is the financial story? I mean, as recent as today, we've got the news of Aadhar Poorawala and Magma FinCorp. But that aside, I mean, clearly gives you conviction on how strong the entire NBFC story is within financials.
I think, as far as financials is concerned, again, the country's growth rate, if we need to grow, finance is the lifeline or the bloodline of any economy for that matter. We are, as far as the country is concerned, again, our saving rates historically have always been high. Of course, they've come off in the recent past, but we still remain a reasonably high savings country. And from that perspective, the penetration levels of being leveraged have not been high. Of course, with the newer generation and with the growing spend that people really want to do on living better and better quality of life, you will see the penetration improving. The prospects of financials in general, and particularly well-run NBFCs, is always going to remain. It's going to be, there's an NBFC out there with a very, very good track record, good policy framework, and good risk models in place. I think there is growth for him to take. As far as in a country, with the size that we are, and the kind of fillip that the government and the RBI is unleashed on for growth. So I think there is enough and more for NBFCs, or for that matter, finance companies to take. I think the key point here is your policy framework should be perfectly in place. Your distribution should be out there, and most important, your risk models need to be well tested. And I think in the last 4 or 5 years, the men have been separated from the boys as far as the NBFC is concerned. We've seen enough and more of hiccups which have come along the way, starting from demon to various other things, and last but not the least, the pandemic. So I think it's very clear which of the few NBFCs out there are really going to be the giants of tomorrow. Some already are, by the way.
Right. I must tell our viewers who are tuning in right now that just the other day when I was chatting with Anil and talking about valuations being rich, and he said, valuations, what's that? And for a second, I didn't get the joke. And then he's like, what's that? So valuations clearly not being a concern. But Ajay, are you worried about valuations being ripe in any of the pockets? And then would you want to switch to maybe more bottom-up stories, which is more Satya style?
So Aisha, you are right. But what has happened is helped by the budget, not many sectors. There was a last sector which was remaining, which was not, which was requiring some sort of help, which was infrastructure. So it got helped by the PLI schemes announced prior to the budget, and also there was in the budget there was a lot of announcement about infrastructure spend. So what has happened is post that a lot of these sectors have reflated, or the stocks have reflated. So I would say it is a level playing field, and consumer stocks have come off in the cyclical rally. So on a comparative basis, I feel sectors are not, most of the sectors are well balanced in terms of PE multiples. So multiple of consumer stocks have come off, whereas cyclicals, they are still, they have run up. In anticipation, the spend is going to happen and it will convert into profits. So looks like in all likelihood that the volatility or sector rotation what we saw till now, probably we will have less of sector rotation, and it will convert into a bottom-up stock picking. And I'm a stock basically bottom-up person, where I don't believe in sectors, because once we talk about sectors, so then we don't differentiate between two companies. In fact, when the valuations are high, there has to be a significant USP about a company. So most of the companies that you'll find or one will find in my portfolio will be near monopolies or market leaders. So there will be a significant USP about that particular company, whether it is in automation or agri or even for that sake in financials. We tend to we have been able to find leaders in the category, but somehow not by design but by luck, the portfolio happens to be well diversified.
I could see Satya smirking. Yes, Satya, I mean, world over, it's the large is only getting larger and it's becoming a giant whale. I mean, I can go on with the list from an Amazon to a Tesla and on and on and on. Similar has been the theme in India as well. But since you're the more bottom-up guy, where are the hidden gems in this market?
Yeah, where can I? Last part I didn't get it.
I was just wondering, where are the hidden gems in this market? What are those bottom-up undiscovered stories?
What I would say is that why are you going to looking around for hidden gems when there are gems which are there in the open? As you said, large are getting larger, and that is one of the major trends that are playing out across the globe, both in developed worlds and in India also. It's mainly to do with, in the Western world, it's mainly to do with tech companies and the network effects that tech companies have. And in India, it is more to do with formalization of the economy and access to credit, etc., that is there with the larger ones. So that is why that's a trend that is happening in India. So, see, as far as hidden gems, if at all if I have to go and find hidden gems, I think hidden gems are there in the tech sector in India, which are currently in the private space. I am not talking of tech. I would differentiate between IT services and tech. In India, we tend to confuse both, but IT services are separate and tech is separate. Tech is mostly, apart from 2-3 companies, are in the private domain. And I think this year you will see a lot of tech companies coming in for IPOs. So that is when public investors have to get used to investing in companies with valuations which maybe they're not used to. Maybe investing in companies which don't make money with multi-billion dollar market cap. So I think that is where the hidden gems are, which till now the public investors don't have access to. But going forward, I think we will find a lot of companies which are coming at 4 billion, 5 billion market cap. You might think that that's already 5 billion or already 10 billion. But the trends that are getting amplified because of COVID, I think there is significant upside in the tech space in India going forward.
Let's call them digital enablers, for the lack of a better word. Okay. Anil, just wanted to get your sense as well right now. I mean, mutual funds are like medicines and food. What suits me doesn't suit you. What I like, you don't like. My needs are different than yours. Is there need to prima facie try and realign your portfolio, ease off on the large caps, increase small and mid cap exposures? I don't know if it's a fair question to ask you.
No, in the sense, look, when you look for companies or sectors, you're looking for growth, you're looking for good management, you're looking for you're looking for what's the moat in a particular company, what is it that this company can offer which is unique, which is a major strength, and which you think you want to invest in. And the most other important part when you invest in a company is the scalability of the business, right? I mean, that business needs to be scalable. We call India, and of course the globe from an exports perspective, but India itself is pretty unique as a country. What sells in the East, one has not even heard in the West, and vice versa when it comes to South and the North. So the country really, scalability is important, whether it's a product, whether it's a service or whatever it is that the company has to offer. So, as a fund manager, you really need to look at all these issues and things and then go ahead and invest. The last thing that I really do is look at, is this a small cap or a mid cap first? So I don't really go out looking. While I do manage the flexi cap and the mid cap fund, but you really don't look at a company just because it's a mid cap or a small cap. You look at a company for various reasons that I just talked about, and then ask yourself, do you really want to invest in that? And if the answer is yes, you buy it. Luckily for me, flexi cap is now completely flexible, which means there are no boundaries in terms of how much I can have of small, mid, or large for that matter. It could be anything across. And of course, mid cap, there are SEBI guidelines within which one needs to operate and within which one is functioning. But I think the way to look at investing is that versus rather than looking at going out in the marketplace and looking for a small cap and then investing. I'm just clarifying that. Having said that, I'm sure many fund managers, many experts have come and always said this, that the large caps are much more better researched. They have larger board of directors, board advisors. Yeah, that goes with the territory because they are large caps. And they're always under the public eye versus a small mid micro cap. Is not necessarily being seen or evaluated or analyzed to that degree, to that extent, and not in a public eye. So the risks are obviously going to be higher. But having said that, that's where that's where the new winners of the new large caps are going to emerge from. So you need to keep looking at everything that comes your way. But as I said, besides the obvious things, which is management, growth, the first thing that you really need to look at is the business scalable. To me, that's the most important thing.
Ajay, you want to add something there?
So I do agree with Anil, what he said, and most of the things even I follow, and it is all about not whether the company is small or big. So we saw a company, basically large caps can become mega cap, and even then they will remain a small cap in a global scheme of things. So it is all about the size of opportunity, how management thinks, and can you think exponential. So one more thing I would like to add, till mid of the last decade. So it was kind of people used to track the CAGR part. So starting from mid of the decade, the thinking has to be exponential. So most of the tech companies globally, if you see, their thought process has been exponential. They have been able to grow exponentially. They have been able to capture market share exponentially. They have been able to kill 8-9 industries by one stroke. We use mobile. So if you were to think why it is called mobile, it is actually you don't need a car. You don't need to travel to a bank. You can just bank on the mobile, right? Which is another. It is called cellular phone, or it is called a mobile. So one needs to think very differently in this digital world and build a portfolio accordingly. So there will be lot many, as Satya pointed out, there will be lot many technological companies which will come, and a few of the global CEOs are from India. So you will have companies from India, for sure.
Satya, you have something to add there?
See, unlike both of them manage the mandates are flexi cap. So in both the tax scheme and Anil's in the flexi cap category. Unfortunately, I manage a large and mid cap, which has rules and bounds of how much I should invest where. So if one of my mid cap picks converts into a large cap, then I have to go and search for another mid cap so that I maintain the 35% minimum exposure to mid caps. So I definitely aggressively look out for mid caps. But the thing is that for me it's a mid cap because the market cap is lower. Otherwise, everything else is the same, whether it's a mid cap company or a large cap company. It's the same thing that we look from the companies. It's not something it's different. Maybe for small cap also we look. It's the same way of picking up stocks. So apart from that, I think I agree with what both of them are saying. If there is no regulatory constraints, you should actually look at stocks on their own rather than a large cap, because as I said, one of the trend is that large is becoming larger. as you said, that's a trend globally, and you don't want to move out of that trend at this point of time. I think still there are a lot of levers and a lot of forces which will make these large companies much more larger, unless, of course, there are regulatory constraints that come in the US, etc., to control the tech companies, which is a risk for those tech companies. I don't think those risks are there in Indian companies. In Indian companies, large companies are getting larger.
So I would like to add to what Satya said.
Sure.
Historically, as a house, we have picked up a lot of. There are many examples. They are still sitting, and we have still investment in those companies. When we picked up, these were small caps. Even in fact, if I remember correctly, one or two of them, they were micro caps. They were merged as large caps now. So
Catch them young and see them grow.
Yeah. So it is all about stock picking and fund management. So it is all about that.
Indeed, it is. But Satya, before it's time to wind up and take perhaps some of the audience questions as well, just one question. The entire global auto recovery theme has been playing out, and domestic theme as well. What started off with rural has now spread its wings across, almost touching now or pilfering through to the CVs as well. Considering most auto anchs fall up into the small and the mid-cap category, do you believe that this is a theme which is here to stay, or do you think come EVs, this is going to be challenging?
See, definitely auto companies is the EV that is expected to dominate going forward. And we have to look for auto component companies which are not at the threat of EVs, because Ajay knows that he has studied it thoroughly. The components in an EV four-wheeler is significantly lower than the number of parts that are used in a normal vehicle. So in that sense, a lot of business will go away. But there are certain good, high-quality auto component companies which are not exposed to this threat. So I think we have to be selective. The opportunity is quite large if you take care of this. So Ajay, I think you'd like to add something there. The kind of companies, auto component companies. I think Ajay owns quite a few of them.
So Aisha, so if you would have asked me a question on autos, I would have said I have a significant exposure to autos. If you would have asked me a question that are you bullish on autos, I would have said probably no.
Okay.
So how I read out autos, I'll tell you. There's few things that are going to remain common when the transition happens from ICE vehicles to EVs, to autonomous cars, to even autonomous cars. Paint is going to be required, right? And tires are going to be required.
Yeah.
Seat belts are going to be required. Airbags are going to be required. So you need to think on those lines, what all things are going to be required and are going to be common when the transition happens.
Sure. I think you've given us a list of companies without even mentioning them as to what within the auto ancillaries one really needs to focus on. Another one space that we haven't spoken about is commodities. Again, a beautiful rally has played out globally as such as well. The price hikes continue over there. But is commodity still a good place to be in? Or would you say that it's priced to perfection? Although you don't believe in the theory.
No, I think... why commodities? If you look at any stock today, as we speak, and on current earnings for FY22, it's priced to perfection and probably beyond. I don't think it's just commodity. I think the important call in this particular rally is this the beginning of a new growth phase from a country perspective, which is likely to lead to profitable earnings growth for corporate India over the next 3 to 5 years. And I think if the answer to that is yes, then there's a long way for commodities to go to, because it cannot just be that there will be demand for consumer cars and consumer durables, because to make those you'll need steel, you'll need aluminum, and you'll need everything else. So the important call really is that are we looking in this right now? Is this growth sustainable from the next 3 to 5 year perspective? If the answer is yes, I think commodities has a lot of juice still left. I hope I've answered
Ajay,
the question.
you have. Ajay, just closing comments before we wind up.
So I think Aisha's something's gone off with the footage, but if we can just give the closing comments, if we can start off with Ajay, if you'd like to go first.
So from my side, I would say last year when we did a voyage in the month of April or May, that time equity was looking a bad place to be in, and the question was why equity? Why not fixed income? Why not gold? Or why not silver? But I just and that too on a 5 year and even beyond that, returns were looking a bit low as compared to the other asset class. Just check the returns of the various asset class and the equity category. And the surprise part is like 10-year returns, 5-year returns, they happen to be mid-teens, and even 3-year returns, they are not looking bad. They are almost touching double digit. So this is the power of equity. So my advice will be to run a balanced portfolio, maintain a balance, consult your advisor, and do a proper asset allocation. So what will happen is like you will not panic when the world panics.
Fantastic. I bet Ajay, I bet nobody's asking you now why equities. I'm sure everybody's on board for that. Satya, can we go to you while Aisha joins us back? Satya.
Yeah.
I'm back. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, yes, Aisha, we can hear you. Okay, good, you're back. So I was just taking it ahead from where you said. So I've got Ajay to give his closing comments and Satya, and then back to you.
So my final comments would be that, Aisha, you're telling something.
No. Go ahead. I was just wanting to say that, maybe I should have discussed telecom considering my link snapped, but Satya, go ahead.
Okay, so my final comments would be that, my take is that, we have seen unprecedented level of fiscal stimulus, which is coupled with unprecedented level of non-stimulus, which I think will lead, which always leads to increase in corporate profits, which the market is seeing and anticipating. So, and I think this will go on for quite some years. So going forward, I think the markets will be positive. You may not get the kind of returns that you got from the bottom of the market, but still, I think it will be more than the average that you have that the equity markets have generated. The only concern that I would look is that this kind of fiscal stimulus always results in some inflationary pressure. And if there are inflationary pressure, then we should look at investing in companies which have pricing power. So that eliminates few commodity type companies which don't have pricing power. And as far as equity allocation goes, historically, whenever there has been inflation, equities have always outperformed bonds. So I think there should be considering where the bond yields are and the expectation of inflation if they rise and they rise going forward. So then I think the only way to hedge is to have a larger allocation to equities than you normally have.
Anil, would you concur with that view? Interest rates on our side, you've got the FII money as well pouring in. It's still very much intact. Besides a few odd corrections from the current levels, would you say that the returns for equities are going to be pretty much intact, or would you say that we must have a more modest expectation for 2021? It's obviously not going to be a replica of 2020.
No, I genuinely believe that nothing goes as per the script. That's the way the world is. That's the way it is. So let's all just rejoice 2020 for being safe, for having invested, for having made our money, and look forward positively to 21. But at the same time, let's not be greedy. If there is return on the table, take it. But as you rightly said, don't expect a 2020 to repeat.